My name is Todd Shoemaker. I'm the pastor of student ministries at Grace Church Bath Campus in Akron, Ohio. This is my Akron representative, all right? Originally from Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, so the past 9 years I've been in Akron. Before that it was Pennsylvania. And yeah, it's really good to be here with you guys. This is my 15th year at Momentum. Came as a student, went all through my years when I was at Grace College, to Momentum, and since I've been a pastor, have been coming every year. So it's good, all right? Love Momentum. I love everything it represents. Love how the week really leads us all closer to Christ, and it is just a phenomenal week. So hopefully, so far this week has been impactful to you, and I think we're just getting started. I think the week's going to continue to ramp up, and it's going to be some good stuff this week, all right? So don't knock it till you try it. Discussion about sex and technology. I'm going to tell you, I was asked to do this power track. And as I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, this is something that is pretty common for us in our world today. All right? You guys, as teenagers, your generation is facing the pressures of sex, the pressures of really fighting to live a pure life. In all facets, but also the use of technology, it's all around us, right? And it's continuing to ramp up constantly. And so what I want us to do today is have a discussion based on what these ideas, these concepts, sex and technology, can look like in our lives, all right? And we have to go all the way back to the original origin of these things, right? How they were created, the purpose of why they were created, why they're actually good, all right? And how we have kind of corrupted the purpose of both, all right? And so you think of the creation, the origin of sex, all the way back in the beginning, right? God, book of Genesis chapter 1, created everything, right? And we read the creation story of how he created everything to come to being. But you think of this, all right? God created Adam, right? And he said it's good. But he saw that Adam was alone. And he said it's not good. And so as he saw that as God saw that Adam was alone, he said that that's not good. So he created a suitable helper. Took the own rib of Adam and created a woman, Eve. And then he said it's really good. He said it's awesome. All right? He created a suitable helper for Adam to share life with. And there's many things that we can learn from that. And the two primary ones is this. A, it's not good to be alone, but it's also important that we're in community with one another. And so as you think about this, all the way back from the beginning when Adam was created, Eve was created, God created man a suitable helper there. Mark 10, verse 8, it also talks about how a man and a woman will come together and become one, right? Become one flesh. And so you see, it is God's design for sex to be good. And we heard that yesterday morning from the Kings as they were sharing just the importance of a pure life. Right? What was the statement? He said something like, we view sex is, help me out, it was God, what was it?
Sex is not gross and sex is not God. It is good because God made it.
That's exactly right? So sex is not gross, right? Sex is not to be a God, sex is to be good. And so it's important that we understand that mindset of it. All right? Now let's look at technology for a second. Technology, I'll be honest, I think it has too much of an influence on us here in our world. I think it has too much influence. I think it is a driving factor of really sometimes who we are. I think about, have you ever left your phone somewhere? I found a phone last night in the main session. I bet you that student was like freaking out when they realized that the phone wasn't with them. All right, I turned it in. I was a good leader. All right, I hope it got back to its rightful owner this morning. But have you ever left your phone somewhere? I legitimately feel like I left a big part of who I am, and I feel lost without it at times. You guys with me? You guys ever feel that? It's amazing that the amount of power technology has in our lives. Whether it's our handheld devices, whether it's the TV we watch, whether it's whatever, the music you listen to, our leaders meeting this morning. The amount of influence that music has in our culture is unbelievable. So as you look at all these things, we're being influenced left and right. You as a student are being influenced not only by technology, but the pressures when it involves sex. Right? What's too far? What's not far enough? What is it that, man, I just have to be accepted by my peers, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, if I don't or if I do? The pressures are around us all the time. And so what I want us to do is this. I think we have corrupted the original purpose of sex. I think we've corrupted the original purpose of technology, and that purpose being to be able to connect with each other. You think about social media platforms. It gives you the ability, whether you're 18 hours away in Florida, right? Other side of the country on OB in California, Allentown, PA represent, right? York, Pennsylvania, wherever. You're able to connect all around the world. Every summer I take a group of students to Mazatlan, Mexico. Love going down there. We've built relationships with people. It's amazing how I can stay connected with them. Right? You guys know what social media does. You know the power of what that's able to do. But really, all of that's being created so that we can be connected, which is a good thing. Would you disagree with me on that? Right? No, like sex is awesome. Excuse me, technology is awesome. Hey! All right, Phil. It is, guys. All right. Real quick. I gotta show you something. Okay, here we go. This is my family. All right. So when I say sex is awesome, it really is. All right. This is my wife, Katie. She's babe, and I love her. For a little over 4 years, we've been married. This is our son, Graham. He's 2.5. All right, Graham, he's awesome. He makes me smile so much. The Monday this week when we were leaving, I was saying goodbye, and we were sitting down eating lunch, and he's like, Daddy, his gibberish voice of a 2.5-year-old. He's like, we need to pray. Can we play? Can we please play, Daddy? It was awesome. Like, it melted my heart that he was eager to pray, all right? And so this is my family. I had to just brag about them a little bit. I can't believe I just said randomly that sex is awesome when I'm talking about technology. Okay, either way. We'll get to that in a second. But anyway, we have corrupted, right, the original purpose of sex. We have corrupted the original purpose of technology. It is our desires, our sinful nature that we tend to take it too far. But I want you to know this, all right? The pressures of both that you face as a teenager, all right, it's only going to continue to get worse, all right? It's only going to be more difficult the more that our advancement of technology comes into place, all right? So whether it's things on social media, videos, pornography, sexting, whatever it is, right? Those pressures are alive, they are real, and you are facing them, okay? And so I'm aware of it, I get it. But I want you to know that those pressures are rooted in something much different. And so as you guys looked at the write-up, I hope that you read kind of what it said, and not just like, wow, until you try it, sex and technology, come in, right? You read it, there is something more that we need to long for, all right? And I think as we see the temptations that we face, the pressures that we face, it's not just a sin issue. I think it's rooted back to our hearts. I think it's ultimately a heart issue. And so what I want us to unpack a little bit is identifying what the image of God looks like. And when we are able to reflect the image of God, I think what happens is we tend to see these two topics come together with a little bit more light, a little bit more clarity and understanding. Okay? So I want you to think about this, all right? Every morning, every day, we look in a mirror, right? Don't lie to yourself, you do. All right, you look in the mirror, you brush your teeth, you do your hair, you make sure that what you're wearing is good. You look in a mirror. And every day you're looking at the image that you're creating. Right? We all have been striving to create our image. For some of us, it's a little bit more than just the way we look. We're developing an image of success, an image of popularity, an image to make sure that I don't stick out too much, that I'm going to get made fun of at school. An image to make sure that that boy or that girl is going to see me for maybe my appearance just to get their attention. And then maybe they'll start seeing me for who I am, that we can have a relationship. You're building an image every single day. Think about it for a second. The image that you're developing and that you're creating. The image of acceptance. The image of the perfect looks, the certain brand of clothes, the newest materialistic things that we have. For some of you, maybe your image is locked in to athletics, the sports that you play, being the all-state, making the varsity team, making sure that you are starting come fall. Maybe you play an instrument, maybe it's the orchestra, you get first chair, right? Maybe it's the perfect grades, the pressures, maybe that you even face at home play a huge role into the image that you're developing to be able to succeed. If you get nothing but straight A's, you beat yourself up over. For some of us, it requires a mask that we wear. It requires us to masquerade around to make sure that what you see me as is accepted, is approved. But really, when you pull back the layer, when you pull back the mask, you see the ugliness that's inside. You see the true you sometimes. And let's be honest, if you look around this room, every single one of us has the ugly, right? Every single one of us, we're not perfect. And you know that. So you're developing an image. And for some of you, you care more about your image than others of us. But I want you to begin thinking about what would happen if that image was shattered. What would happen to you if your image that you've spent so much time and effort in was shattered? I think there's a couple examples that we can learn from in the Bible, Paul being one of them. All right? Most of us know who Paul is. Without him, we wouldn't have much of the New Testament. I think he's one of the greatest missionaries to walk this earth. Right? And if you know anything about Paul, he wasn't always Paul. Before that, he was Saul. And he was living a much different life. Right? I believe Saul came from a family of wealth, so he probably had the money that he needed. He had land, which meant more than anything at that time. There wasn't even really a price tag to it. And at this time, you have a guy who it was training to be a rabbi. So he was really smart. Even at a young age, he was pursuing this in his life. Not only was he really smart, but he was a hard worker. So he had a strong work ethic. He had everything that you could imagine. He had the fame. He had the success. He had it all. But it's amazing that one day, as he was on the road to Damascus, God changed everything. God stepped into Saul's life and shattered his image. If you don't know the story, right? He had an interaction with the Lord. And Saul's life got turned upside down. And we know him to be Paul. The image that Paul was developing for himself was shattered by God. And Paul took on a new identity. Paul took on a new image. The image of Christ in his life. Another example is Peter. Right? I kind of refer to him as the spokesperson for the disciples. Right? Good disciple. He had a good occupation. He probably had good friends. A good life. Right? He had what he needed. His image in his mindset, he was set. It was good. But here's the deal. One day, Jesus shows up to Peter and says, "Hey, Peter, I want you to stop what you're doing." Peter was a fisherman. It's a good job. If I could be a fisherman for a career, that'd be kind of cool. All right, I like to fish a lot. But I really like being a pastor, so I'm going to stick with that, all right? But here's the thing. Peter, a fisherman, Jesus approaches him and says, "Listen, I want you to stop what you're doing, and I want you to follow me. Drop what you're doing and follow me." And in that moment, right, Peter's image was shattered. It was no longer him. It was no longer the image that he was creating for himself. He took on a new image, the image of Christ. And he started to follow Jesus where he was going. What does that image look like? What does the image of Christ look like in your life? And I want you to start measuring for a minute. I want you to start evaluating your life. The image that you are creating, is it your image? Is it all about what you are pursuing and desiring in your life? Maybe it's the topics that we're talking about here today, right? Are you allowing yourself to be defeated by the temptation? The temptation to go too far with your boyfriend or girlfriend. Right? The temptation to use this as a very powerful weapon. You have access, really, to everything. Are you falling into the temptations of viewing pornography? Is a part of your image locked into the fact that, man, I really think I can get my boyfriend to like me a little bit more if I just show a little bit more skin? Listen, I promise you, I'll delete it right after I send it. Can I just have that picture? Because it hurts. But the reality is, I want you to know something. That's not the image of Christ. It doesn't matter how much he or she's telling you they love you. They wouldn't be asking you to do those things. It doesn't happen like that. That is Satan trying to get you. So as you think about this for a second, all right? The image that you're creating, I said this isn't necessarily just a sin issue. This is a heart issue. And we have to evaluate our heart. We have to evaluate the image that we have. So are you pursuing the image that you're creating, that you're developing for yourself? The success, the fame, the popularity, the perfect relationship, doesn't matter what that requires of you. Or are you willing to have an interaction like Paul and Peter had, where you are allowing God to show up and shatter your image? If you were to look at yourself in the mirror right now, who do you see? The image that you've created or the image of God? Galatians chapter 5. Go ahead and turn there. Galatians chapter 5. Let's take a look here for a second. Let's start in verse 19. All right? Listen to these words, Galatians chapter 5, verse 19. It says, "The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. But," it's a big but in the Bible right here. All right, I like this. This is a good but. All right, here's the deal. Verse 22. "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, it's joy, it's peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. Those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking, and envying each other." See, I love what these verses are saying here, because what happens is this. We spend so much time, so much of our lives, working on our image. The image that we are creating for ourselves. But I want you to know, it's going to leave us feeling empty. It's going to lead us to nowhere if we live our entire lives working on what we want. Some of you this week already have said, you know what, Jesus, I need to walk with you. I need to have a relationship with you. And for some of you, maybe in this room, you've developed that relationship with the Lord for the first time this week. I love it. For some of you, you've been in a relationship with Jesus for quite some time now, and maybe there's some of you that aren't there yet. It's okay. But whenever that time occurred in your life, where you decided to walk with the Lord, that should be the moment where Paul and Peter experienced. Where the image that they were carrying for themselves was shattered, and you begin to take on this new image. I'll never forget, it was 7th grade for me. It was the fall of my 7th grade year, where I knew that I was missing something in my life. My parents were divorcing, my life was falling apart. So I thought when I was in 7th grade. I knew that I needed something more. And I remember I was at camp, a weekend retreat with our church, my youth group, and I knew that I needed to have a relationship with Jesus. I'll never forget that day. Because I realized, right, that I needed to start living my life for the Lord. Now, that doesn't mean that it all became perfect after that. You know that that's not true. And even so, this is something that as an adult, I struggle with at times. Because it's very easy to fall back into this idea that, oh, it's about me. It's about what I want. It's about how I can look good. It's about how I can have the fame, the success, the amount of money, yada, yada, yada. It's amazing to slide back into that and make the image about us. But that moment when I chose to follow Christ with my life, to put my trust and faith into Him, that's the day when God shattered my image. He says, listen, I've got something else for you. I've got something better. Take on the image of me, so that when others see you, they don't see the image that you've created. They see me. So instead of the fame, the popularity, the desire to sleep around, the desire to send text messages of yourself, pictures, right? Instead, you look at these verses, and your life should reflect joy, love, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These are things that should be overflowing from your lives. So that when you look in the mirror, you don't see you see Jesus. That's where we need to land. That ties us back into the issue where we struggle so much in our world today. Because you're being told, go get what you want. Right? Go find what brings you happiness. But man, you look at this. Everything you need is in the character of who God is and what God has for us. So what does that mean here for us as we think about how do we shatter our image? And how do we allow God to be the image in our lives? I think there's 3 things, all right? And as we tie this back in to the temptations, the struggles that we may have with sexual purity, or even the inappropriate use of our phones or technology around us, how do we allow God to shatter our image? Here's the first one. Draw near to Him, and He's going to draw near to us. James chapter 4, verse 7 and 8. Therefore submit to God, it says. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. I love this verse. I find so much comfort knowing that God is going to draw near to me when I come to Him. Satan is terrified of the Lord. Satan is terrified of Him. But Satan is also out to get us. And when we have weaknesses in our lives, when we have temptations in our lives that we can't seem to get over, Satan wants to use that. He wants to put his foot in the door and say, hey, this is good. Right? He's the father of lies. He wants you to believe that it's okay to go too far with your boyfriend or girlfriend. It's just one time. It's all good. That picture, it's not going to go anywhere else but to the one person that I send it. It's Snapchat. It'll go away. It won't ever come back. Right? He wants you to believe that it's okay. But this verse says, man, resist the devil. Resist those temptations, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and God will draw near to you. Guys, this may seem cheesy, but this is something that I still do. I did it when I was a teenager, and I still do it when I feel like I am being tempted. And listen, I'm far from perfect. I struggle every single day of my life. But when I feel like I am being tempted, I will literally verbally say out loud, Satan, get away from me. Satan, be gone. Get out of my life, get out of my mind, get out of my heart. Satan, flee. And I want to challenge you. If you feel like you are struggling, and you feel like you just can't get over that temptation, every time that temptation comes in, say, Satan, get away from me. Satan, flee. And then say, Lord, draw near to me now. Draw close to God, and He will draw close to you. Here's the second thing. We actually have to work to protect our hearts. We have to protect our hearts. Ephesians 6 talks about the armor of God. We must put on the armor of God to protect ourselves from the evil one. Encourage you to read that. As you think about protecting yourself, what can you do to place things around you to protect you when you know you are weak? When you know that you are not strong to overcome those temptations? Boundaries are so important. And I don't want to spend all this time on do's and don'ts of the sex and the technology aspect of this, because you know where you struggle. And I know even in the past 48 hours of us being here, you have talked to your leaders about what God is already revealing to you, areas where you know that you're struggling. And I love that you guys are able to open up and be vulnerable and allow other people into your life to see that you're weak. It's not worth fighting to try to stay strong. If you're struggling with sexual purity, talk to somebody. If you're struggling with using this inappropriately, talk to somebody. If you are hurting in any way, talk to somebody. The world's telling you you've got to be strong. You've got this. Don't worry about it. You don't need help. But that's not true. We need each other. And so by protecting our heart, we need to allow other people to come into our lives to help us, to support us, to be guardrails is what I like to refer to them as. Because as we're going through life, journeying, we're going to go like a crazy driver on the road. But those guardrails keep us on the road. And those guardrails, what it looks like, is a caring adult to come into your life, to keep you accountable, to support you, to ask you the hard question. Hey, did it happen again? Hey, how are you doing? That question sometimes it seems to be just a common conversation question. Hey, how are you doing? But have you ever had someone sit across the table from you or next to you, look at you in the eyes and say, no. How are you really doing? Do you have somebody in your life that is asking you the hard questions? So establish the accountability. Protect your heart that way. Get into God's Word. Yes, draw near to Him. He's going to draw near to you. But this is a powerful weapon too. And when you fill your heart with the truth of the Lord, your mind will become more pure. Your heart will become more pure as you focus on the Lord. Protect your heart. Draw near to Him, and He will draw near to us. The third one is this. Our theme this week, resolve to a lifestyle of purity. Decide, make the decision that this is something that you want to pursue. Stand firm, saying, I am going to draw near to God, understand who He is, allow His image to consume me, so when people see me, they don't just see me, they see Jesus through me. Resolve to a lifestyle of purity. Allow God to lead you and help you. As I was preparing for this, when I was walking over here this morning, I don't know, the song just kind of came to my mind, and these lyrics I think are just so perfect as it falls into this conversation. All right, and so this is actually my desire. I want us to actually finish with this. All right, and what's going to happen? I know we're done a little early, but here's the deal. All right, I don't want you to just get. I mean, you're welcome to if you need to go somewhere, but use this time If you came with friends, if you came with an adult, I want you to hear the words, the lyrics to the song that you guys all know. All right? And then I want you to spend some time praying with each other. All right? Take a couple minutes, pray with each other. I'm not saying this needs to be the time where you're confessing sins. No. All right? If it needs to be, find time with one of your leaders today. But listen to the words of this song. Allow it to be your prayer. And then I want you guys to spend some time together thinking about how you can draw closer to God. How you can set up those guardrails in your life and to protect you. Some of you are sitting here, you're like, Todd, I don't have this struggle. Not yet. These are things that we are all going to face, these temptations. And so maybe you're not facing it yet, but man, pray that God would protect you when that time comes. So if we spend time praying together, that's already starting us in the process of protecting our hearts and minds from the evil one here. So I'm going to read this lyric aloud to be the starting point of your prayer with the people there across the table, 3, 4, 5 of you, whatever. Let's spend some time, and then I will close this in prayer, and then I'll dismiss. If you guys have questions, I'll stick around here. I have another breakout right after. All right? Listen to these words. Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour, I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where sins run deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour, I need you. Guys, allow that to be the beginning of your prayer as you spend time together. Shattering your own image and taking on the image of God. That lifestyle, the lifestyle that God gives you and I encourage you to try it.